For centuries, a massive power struggle was raging for the very soul of the Catholic Church in France, and it all came down to one fundamental question. Who holds the ultimate authority? Is it the Pope, or is it the King?
Now you have to understand, in France, this wasn't just some abstract philosophical debate. No way. This was a real high-stakes conflict that pitted kings against popes and seriously threatened to fracture the entire church.
So, to really get a handle on this showdown, which, by the way, lasted for nearly 200 years, we've got to first look at the two powerful ideas that were clashing head-on.
At the heart of it all, you've got these two opposing camps. On one side, there's Ultramontanism. The name literally means beyond the mountains, and it looked to the Pope in Rome for supreme, ultimate authority. But on the other side, you have Gallicanism, this uniquely powerful movement in France that wanted to pump the brakes on that authority, putting more power in the hands of the local king and bishops.
And what's really interesting here is that Gallicanism didn't start out as some full-blown heresy. Its followers argued that it was a perfectly legitimate theological opinion. They were basically saying the Pope's power just wasn't absolute, that it needed to be balanced by other forces inside the church.
But these opinions, well, they weren't just going to stay ideas on paper for long. Oh no. They were about to become a formal, direct challenge to Rome's power, and it all got written down in one single pivotal year.
That year was 1682. This is when the French clergy got together and issued this incredibly bold declaration. They basically crystallized the entire movement into 4 distinct articles, which became the official rulebook for Gallicanism from then on.
And these 4 rules really lay out their entire argument perfectly. First, the Pope's authority is spiritual only. He can't mess with kings in their earthly affairs. Second, a big general council of the church, that's superior to the Pope. Third, the Pope has to play by the local French rules and customs. And fourth, and this one was the real kicker, the Pope's judgment on matters of faith isn't final unless the rest of the church agrees with him.
But here is the great irony in all this. While its supporters were calling it the liberties of the French church, what happened in reality was a new kind of servitude, not for the state, but for the church itself.
Yeah, just look at this quote from the time. It really reveals the unintended consequence of the whole thing. See, in trying to weaken the Pope's authority, Gallicanism didn't really empower the local bishops. Instead, it just created this giant power vacuum that the state was more than happy to fill, effectively making the king the real head of the church in France.
And the result on the ground? Well, it was state-sponsored chaos. The government suddenly felt free to interfere in, well, everything. They blocked papal instructions, they sided with dissenting groups, they even threw priests in prison whose only crime was being loyal to Rome. This slow erosion of the church's independence just got worse and worse, until finally in 1790, the state used these very ideas to completely dismantle the church's structure in France.
Okay, so with all this going on, you've got to be asking, how did Rome respond to this massive challenge? Well, the counterattack took almost 200 years, but let me tell you, when it finally came, it was decisive.
Rome's response came in stages. Right away, in 1682, Pope Innocent XI declared the articles null and void. By 1693, the French bishops who signed the thing were forced to write letters to the Pope basically saying, oops, never mind. Then you fast forward to the 19th century, and theologians lead this powerful intellectual charge against Gallican ideas, paving the way for the final move, the First Vatican Council in 1870.
And this was the checkmate. The council declared the doctrine of papal infallibility. It states that when the Pope speaks ex cathedra, that is, from the very seat of his authority on faith and morals, his judgment is final. The key phrase here is of itself. That means it doesn't need anyone else's consent. This was a direct, definitive takedown of that fourth and most challenging Gallican article.
So after this epic, centuries-long battle for the soul of the church, what was the ultimate legacy of Gallicanism?
Well, this powerful phrase really says it all. The First Vatican Council didn't just disagree with Gallicanism, it delivered a mortal blow. As a legitimate theological opinion inside the Catholic Church, Gallicanism was officially over. Done. Finished.
I mean, the council's decision was so final that Gallicanism could no longer be considered a free theological opinion. To hold those beliefs now meant you were, by definition, outside the bounds of the Catholic faith. It did survive, but only as a heresy, adopted by a few small splinter groups. Its influence inside the church, though, was gone for good.
So, the fight over Gallicanism might have been settled within the church,
But it leaves us with this massive question, one that continues to echo through history long after these specific debates in France have faded away.